I'm going to get started then for everyone's time. Thank you all so much for being here. I really appreciate it. And thank you to Lucy for being here. Something I want to mention before we start is that the Herron Art Library does have some of Lucy's awesome work in our front exhibits on display. So please come check it out if you haven't already. And I want to start by introducing Lucy. So it is my pleasure to introduce Lucy Roscoe. Lucy is an illustrator and book artist working and living in Scotland. She graduated from, oh, Lucy, I even looked up the pronunciation, Edinburgh. Am I saying it right?
Yep.
That's the
Yeah, yeah.
word that it makes me nervous. So, College of Art with an undergraduate degree and a Master of Fine Art. Her inspirations are travel, literature, archives, and collections. Gardening and food have been newer inspirations. Lucy uses drawing and printmaking to make sculptural books that play with the way we tell stories and also question the idea of what a book can be. Today, she teaches undergraduate illustration at Edinburgh College of Art. She's collaborated with a number of libraries, museums, and archives, including both the National Museum of Scotland and the National Library of Scotland. She designs workshops and materials that allow users to explore the artifacts and engage with the collection through making. So, welcome, Lucy. Thank you so much for being here. I will take control of the slide. So you tell me if you don't mind, or I'll try to pick up on the vibe that you're on to the next slide for you. Okay.
Okay, thank you very much. So can everybody hear me okay?
Yep, you're
Yeah,
perfect.
you're okay. So thank you very much for having me. I am speaking to you today from my studio in a little village called Lesswade, which is just outside Edinburgh. I'm not from Edinburgh. I'm from a place called Oldham, which is quite near to Manchester. So I'm English, but I've been in Scotland since I graduated from the art college. So my accent is a little bit strange these days. Um, yeah, that's me at work. You can see in the picture. It's strange not being in control of your own slides, but we'll get into a rhythm. Do you want to move me up one?
Sure.
So I was just explaining, um, I work as an illustrator, but I teach illustration as well. I'm a lecturer in illustration at Edinburgh College of Art. And when we get visiting speakers, we kind of do a couple of warm-up questions to get to know them a little bit and get everybody kind of to digest their, well, our talk is just before lunch, not just after lunch. Um, so we asked them two questions, and one of them is their favorite drawing tool. Um, so my favorite drawing tool, I like a scalpel actually. Um, I do lots of cut work, so I have a swan scalpel and I change the blades really regularly. And I like a Blackwing pencil as well. If you've discovered those, I don't. I'm sure I'm tiny on this. I'm not. Can you actually see me still?
Oh yeah. Yeah,
You
we
can
can
still
see
see
you.
me. Perfect.
Yep.
So I like a Blackwing pencil. They're a fairly recent discovery. Um, and then the other question that we ask our visitors is what they listen to in the studio. So I we have a thing called Radio 4 over here, which is like talk radio. It's the BBC. And so you get lots of different documentaries and dramas and things on that. But then the other one we get, it's another BBC, but a music station called Six Music, which gives you kind of a mix of music. So those are my two questions. The slide that we're looking at the moment is I have worked with lots of different clients over. I graduated in 2008 and then did my master's. So I've been working on and off with clients throughout that time. And I've got an echo. Have you got an echo?
I think you're okay.
You're okay. It doesn't sound weird to you. That's fine.
Yeah.
I can just turn you down so I can't hear me. There we go. There we go. Yeah. So The images that you're looking at, there's a variety of things there, but I do a lot of hand-drawn work and work with a dip pen and ink, and then I do some sculptural work as well. So the two sculptural pieces you can see were trophies for a Writers' Award, the Scottish Book Trust over here. So the one in the bottom right was the Teenagers Prize, and the top left is the Children's Book Prize. And you'll see, so I'm not going to go through the clients, but I work with lots of heritage collections. I've developed a bit of a specialism working with archives and museums and library collections. And there's a couple of ways I work with them. I either produce illustration work or I design workshops to allow the public to access their collections. So if you move on to the next slide. Yeah, so here's an example of an illustration commission. I quite like doing maps. My colleague doesn't like doing maps because there's loads of changes. Because the thing about when you're illustrating a map, particularly this one, so this is Drumlanrig Castle, which is like a visitor's attraction. So you can see the castle in the bottom, and then it's got a play area and it's got these gardens. So the map needed to explain to visitors where practical things like the parking and the toilets and the shop are, but then also highlight these different features on the map and the different walks that you could take. But I remember going to visit and getting a private tour of the garden of the estate from the head gardener. So that was a real treat. But then also the map got sent to him to check, and he was like, it looks really great, but that tree's in the middle of that path, and it's actually not in the middle of that path. So the thing about maps are they need to be accurate, they need to work. So if you move down to the next slide, you can see another much more recent map. So I've been working with Raby Estate for I worked with them for about 2 years. I'm going into my third year working with them. And they had seen the Drumlanrig map and kind of kept it tucked away for years and years. And then Claire, their head of leisure, got in touch and said, we need a map. So this is the type of thing that we were thinking. And it's the same sort of idea. You can kind of see one of the challenges of this is that it's a big estate with all the important stuff is quite clustered together. But then you've got the kind of castle, which is important, but sort of outlier and the lake, and it's just a really awkward shape to get into a rectangle. So that was one of the challenges of where I left space and how I filled in the space. So if you scroll through the next slide, I quite like talking about this project with American audiences because it's like a proper castle. It's like if you drew a fairy tale castle in Scotland. This is actually the north of England, but yeah, it's a proper castle. And I got to drive my van through under that drawbridge. You can see my little white van in the picture there. There it is, hiding away. You're doing well, assistant here. So I did a number of different visits, and I think the next couple of slides you've got some of my observational drawings from going to visit. So I took lots of photographs and I did lots of drawings, and then it was over quite a bit of time, but I had to ask them for a list of the key kind of spot illustrations, the spot things that they wanted to pick out on the map. I made sure that I went and got drawings of those areas. So this is just an idea of how I approach it. This slide, I love these maps. I still love looking at these maps. So because it was a private castle, and they have quite a good archive. So they've got all these old maps of the estate and all these old family trees. So I was able to look at the map and lift things like the lettering and the style of the houses and those little trees. All those little trees have got their own little shadow. Do you ever, I'm not sure who I'm speaking to student-wise. I would usually kind of ask a little bit about the audience, but I don't normally draw shadows for my trees, but I did try and pick that up and put that into this map. And so, yeah, you can just keep going. I'm going through this quite quickly because I think you want to hear a little bit more about the book arts.
Gotcha.
Um, these are the family trees that I was talking about, and so it was kind of so I was employed to do the map, but Jackie asked me to kind of give any advice and hints and tips. And one of the things they asked me kind of along the way as we're doing this map is, do you do hand lettering? And I was like, well, yes, I do hand letter, and it kind of creeps into my work. And so if you scroll down, me doing a bit of hand lettering turned into me hand painting a family tree on the wall of the castle. Three family trees. So this is the two families entwined and showing how they relate. So this is the design for it. And then I think if you scroll down, you get it in situ. And there was no vinyl transfer. This was hand painted in heritage paints on the castle wall. This is the old housekeeper's sitting room. So this had quite a lot of challenges. I think mural projects are more common in America from what I've heard from I've been over to Icon conference a couple of times, but this was quite a big deal. But it was a great project, and I was able to work really closely with the archivists and the collections officers. And every time I would they had this idea about, because oak trees were part of the estate, and they had this idea that leaves were acorns were the wives and leaves were the children. So some of them had like 20 children, and I had to count and make sure they had all the right leaves and things. But once we were talking about it, the archivists were able to just go, "Oh, right, well, can you come and look at this? And I've found this drawing, I've found this in the collection." So if you keep going, those are the leaves and the acorns, all those dates. It was a nightmare painting onto the wall. And then that became because the wall was so old, it just soaked all the paint in. And then the image you're seeing on the left is from their archive. That's an illustration from the visitor's book that one of the guests at the castle back in 1900 drew this little drawing of the butler and the housekeeper. So those are the most senior staff that worked at the castle, but they really liked the kind of humour of them playing around, and so they asked me to incorporate these characters into a set of illustrations, which again went on the wall, hand painted. It was great. It was a wonderful project. It's just I'm having flashbacks to climbing scaffolding and yeah. Hard hat, working with a hard hat. But yeah, they asked me to incorporate these characters but show off modern day features of the estate and highlights. So this was the Raby project, and I've popped this slide in. So there's a nice quote from the curator and historian Julie. "The fact that you were so genuinely interested in the archive and the sense of place, I think, can be seen in the results of your illustrations, which are genuinely authentic to Raby." I don't know who was more excited though when we're looking at these wallpapers and tiles and ceiling things. I've always loved history, and I was just in heaven. So it was a real joy either to take the colours or to take the patterns and to just weave in as much as I could into the illustrations. So the next slide.
That's so cool, Lucy.
Thank you. Everything's okay? Sounds okay and everything?
Oh yeah, you're great. Oops,
Perfect.
sorry, I keep forgetting the mic.
So this is a more classic illustration commission. It's nice to nosy behind the scenes. I have it in my head that you've got to show your client 4 roughs, 4 thumbnails. So I would usually send over something like this from a sketchbook on the left. And then this client I work with her every year. So she just picks one of them and then that gets developed. If you just go back up for a second.
Oh, sure.
That's okay. This is quite a nice illustration just for pointing out a little bit more of the way that I work. So all of the black lines, that's all drawn with a dip pen, which it's great being in your studio. You can just lean over and hold stuff up, so dip pen.
Cool.
Um, and you can see the coloured blocks. I would usually kind of do those with a brush and ink and scan it in and then change the colour digitally. But the lace is all, there's lace and fabric that I either scan in directly or I would do kind of mono printed papers and scan those in and then turn those into digital layers. So it's a digital collage effectively. Cool. What have we got next? So that's my illustration practice. There's three arms to my practice. There's illustration, there's education, so I'm a lecturer, and then there's the book arts. So the book arts started as a research project. It started as my master's project in 2008, 2010. And it began as a project exploring how the sculptural properties of the book form relate to narrative, and then how these unusual / weird sculptural books that I was making might be published, because they didn't fit in the kind of conventional mainstream. Publishers loved them, adored them, but didn't know what to do with them. So I've got a quote here from a paper I wrote on it a few years ago. The playful experiments have become a practice in their own right, however, also inform the commissioned work. If you remember the trophies, the little trophy sculptures that I showed on the first slide, they were kind of influenced by this work. Significantly, they've also influenced my undergrad teaching practice. Projects offering opportunities for students to learn such skills as pacing, structure, and conversation with an audience. So the image that you can see there is a project that I did. I don't know, you might have heard of it, and if you've not, it's a really good one to look up, but it's the 100 Days Project. And this was the Scottish one. And the concept is that you do something creative every day for 100 days. Now, I've never managed to do it one a day for 100 days. That's just not the way that my life allows me to work. But I've done it within the 100 days, where I've kind of done 5 and then 1 and then none and then. But this, I made a book every day. I made 100 books within the period. And some of them were quite resolved, elaborate pieces, and some of them were just a couple of sheets of paper bound together. But what it allowed, when you make 100 things, maybe 10 of them are great and 90 of them are a load of rubbish. But it actually really fueled my practice for years and years. I still every now and then I've got them all in a box, and I'll go back when I want to start a new artist book and look through and think, oh yeah, I really liked that form. What can I do with that form? Or that worked quite well. Can I develop it? So this one is Industrial Landscape. I'm not sure if it's one that you bought. This was from that exhibition, from that collection, but I've only just last summer turned it into an editioned copy. So, what have we got next? The book trees. So the book trees were...
I love the book trees.
They were one of the first. They were the first sculptural thing, and that's where the Book Tree Press, the name, because it's the idea that you talk about the leaves of a book, and trees have leaves, but then trees are sculptural. It was, and the idea of growth and organic kind of development as well. So I was making these things, and I was thinking, well, and then I was trying to work out how to sell them, and I tried craft fairs and I tried exhibitions, and then I tried artist book events. And the picture that you can see there on the right is the latest artist book fair at the Fruit Market Gallery, which is a contemporary art gallery in Edinburgh. And it happens to be a really great fair, but also just a bus ride away from me. It's my local fair. So I do that each year, and I find it really helpful. I sell work there, but also I get the chance to meet people. So I've got residencies out of it. I've got talks, I've got teaching opportunities, and I've got commissions as well. So I've just found it's a really nice place for me to sit, and my work seems to fit, which is very nice. So artist book fairs are a good way to get your work out there. And so I saw on your Instagram some of the books that you bought. Thank you very much for buying my books. That's very much
Yeah.
appreciated. So I thought I would talk through a couple of the projects. Some of them are quite quick, and some of them I can go into a little bit more detail, and we can keep an eye on the time. I'm also really happy to take questions. So at the end, please do be saving up your questions. So this one is parkour, and this is a really cheap book to make. It's a risograph or a risograph, depending on where you are in the world. Slash, just all my students say it different as well. My students just love it, and I needed to learn what it was and how to use it. So my graduate assistant taught me how to do it. So this started off as magazine collages. So I cut up magazines, random shapes, and started off with these towers, and then kind of thought, oh well, I always think this book makes me look cooler than I am, because I'm not a person that, like, I love the idea of it, but I would be no good at parkour. I don't do it. It's not that I'm a practitioner. It's just that I love the idea of kind of the movement through the city, and I really like cityscapes as a subject matter. So you've got these, and when you're doing parkour, you're kind of just thinking of everything as a shape. So that's the idea of this book. So it progresses to geometric shapes, to kind of slightly industrial shapes, forms, and then it emerges into the city. And it's all just printed on sugar paper. It's two colours, so you've got a blue and you've got a gold on the top. So it was really experimental, but yeah, does the job. And because it was really cheap to make, it just means that I can sell it for a low price, but also I can gift it. I don't need to worry. I can just give them away. When I meet people, I can include it in art swaps, that kind of thing. That's another way for getting your work out there, is swapping work and giving work out. So this is a dreadful photograph, but I put it in here. Oh, I haven't even put the date on. Yeah, that was me coming back to add the date. But this is an example of something I try and work with the book form, is thinking about pacing and thinking about how you use the book form to tell a narrative, to communicate the narrative. So you start with a snail on the front page. It's a really simple collage shape. And then if we go to the next slide, so the snail ate, and we're like, right, what's it eating? And then you come down to the next page, all my plants. And at this point, you can see the full book. So we've got the snail ate all my plants. And the thing that I like about this one is that it makes everyone really angry, because they're like, yes, the snail did eat all my plants. So this was also from the 100 Days project. A little bit about the process. I love a concertina. I just really like a concertina form. It's screen printed, and the way that I've got the kind of colour variation there is by painting into the screen. So it's 3 layers. You've got the grass at the bottom, and then you've got the plants, and then you've got the lettering over the top. But it means that they're all slightly different because I've just hand painted into the screen. Cool. What have we got next? Swimming.
Yeah, I do have to say, this is my very favorite, and we have it on display in the library. I didn't mean for this to be interactive, Lucy. I shouldn't be by the microphone. So.
I'm enjoying it.
Okay,
are the audience enjoying it? Sorry about the rustling. I'm just unwrapping. So this is Tuesday Night Swimming, and it's called Tuesday Night Swimming because I used to go swimming on a Tuesday night, and then my husband's work schedule changed, so then I had to go on a different night, but it's still called Tuesday Night Swimming. And I had learned to make this book form, but I was just waiting for it to find the right book to go into the form. So sometimes my books start with the title, A Snail at All My Plants. Sometimes the books start with the book form, and I go, that's really cool. I really want to know how to use that. So the reason that this one works really well, and I've not managed to recreate it at all, is that when you swim, you get this kind of this stroke of when you're swimming. So the book can actually do that, can make that stroke. You can see the pool and it's full length. You can see a big long swimming pool. But when you're swimming, you only actually see the bit of the pool that you're in. So again, the form works really well for just kind of like telling those sort of little, it's a little bit, it draws on ideas of a comic really, where you kind of have these little pockets tucked in where you've got these little extra bits of narrative tucked in. So yeah, do ask the librarians to get it out so you can fully experience the breathing stroke of Tuesday night swimming. I'm glad you've got that one. What have we got next? Quote. So this is from Paper and Elegy, which is a really good book that I've still not finished reading, but I use this quote a lot. Paper remains the ghost in our machines. We simple paper fanatics and paper fundamentalists, even when it's not there, when it's been shown to be unnecessary or not to exist, we continue to imagine it, to honour it, to wish it into being. So a Word document has the appearance of a sheet of paper. In the corner of this, sorry, there's loads of typos in this. In the corner of the screen sits an image of a waste paper basket. There are margins, paragraphs. We don't need any of those things, but we still have them in all our digital documents. So I've got a little list later on in the presentation of some of the books that I've been reading more recently, but that one is a nice one. So, rewilding. Back to the books. Have you got a copy of this one?
I think we do, actually.
So this one is a rarer book to have because it's hand printed, and it is just packaging. A word on packaging. You need to package your books to keep them clean, to keep them nice, especially when you're selling them. I used to make these really fancy envelopes out of tracing paper, and I glued the sides and they were like a traditional envelope. Now I just like wrap it around like a sleeve so that you can slide it out. So rewilding is made using, I took a workshop with Stephen Fowler, who's a really good person to look up. He's a rubber stamping artist, and he was our visiting speaker last week actually. And this book I made after that. So they're all individually carved blocks. The coloured blocks are just the side of an eraser. And the point, well, there's a few things to point out. Dust flaps are a really lovely, easy thing to add in. And the colour of your thread, think about the colour of your thread. So when you're thinking about artist books, you guys probably all know this, but thinking about how every part of the book can contribute to the narrative. So the colour of the thread should be chosen carefully. And so you start off with, I think if you go to the next slide, you can see.
Sure.
So I don't have to just wave it at you. There we go. I thought about this. So you start off with the cityscape on the left. So there's lots of grey. And your second page is the middle slide, the middle image there. Still very grey, but you're starting to see more plant life coming in. And then you get to the end page, and it's a concertina. Love a concertina. So that it gradually, everything opens up. It's more colour, it's more green, it's more foliage. And because these are rubber stamps, there's quite a lot of repetition you'll notice through the imagery. I was starting to get very interested in tapestry and tiles and that sort of repeat pattern work at this point. So that is rewilding. Is everybody doing all right?
We're doing good.
You're tiny. I've no idea what's going on. So we've got Museum,
Yes.
which is an award-winning book.
And we have it.
You have it. You have an award-winning book. I shouldn't be so excited about that. There's a slide somewhere else, an image
No,
somewhere.
you should be excited.
I submitted it. I was trying to get into more exhibitions, and I submitted it to the Visual Arts Scotland exhibition, which is held in the Royal Scottish Academy, which is this epic building with gigantic pillars on in the centre of Edinburgh, and it's a big deal to be exhibited there. So I was really excited to be exhibited there. This massive plinth, my tiny book, and then I got the phone call that it had won an award, and I just thought that was
Wow.
very nice. But it's tiny. It's really tiny. But this is an interesting book because it has no colour. It's called Blind Embossing, which is a process called colograph. Is that called colograph in America?
It is.
It is. So a colograph plate, you can see on the left there, you've got my dummy book, and then you've got the colograph plate as a collaged plate. And he was talking about using lace earlier. I use lace, I use fabrics, either to print from or to scan from, or in this case, you varnish the plate so it's very hard, and then you can put it through a press, and the paper literally molds around it. So this is a Somerset satin, made at the Somerset paper mill down in England. It's a really good all-round printmaking paper. And then on the outside you've got, it's a hardcover, and the spine is made of a paste paper, where you use wallpaper paste or a cornstarch paste, and it allows you to scrape and score and print into the, and really the ink becomes very malleable. So that's something that I've been exploring recently. So that's museum. I love museums. I was talking about heritage and collections. So the objects in the museum are kind of an amalgamation of a couple of major museums that I've been to over the years. There was one in Helsinki that we spent a lot of time in, and then the National Museum of Scotland as well. Brilliant. So we're moving on to talk about Swatch Book now, which you also showed on your Instagram.
Yes.
I don't have one in my hand here. No, I don't, but I've got pictures of it. So Swatch Book came about because I had all these beautiful papers that again, being in the studio, I can show you. This is my shoebox full of beautiful scraps of paper. And so they're too nice to throw away, but so I keep them all for collage, and I scan them in and I use them. There's some collage stuff. But I was thinking, some of them are really interesting kind of works of art, miniature paintings in their own right. So the idea of making a swatch book, I actually was expecting more to be looking at like wallpaper swatch books. That was what I started with. But then when I started researching into it, I found these embroidery books. And I've just shown two. There's quite a lot if you look into it. Note a small benefit of COVID was that a lot of the collections went online. So there's lots of things that you can access without needing to travel. I still am a huge advocate for going to see things in person if you can. But for me, it's really helpful. Financially, I can't, or just practically, I can't get across the world to see things. So being able to access stuff online is really helpful. So here's my sketchbook page. I was thinking, right, what do I do with all these? How do I present all the things? And yeah, if you scroll down, do we get pictures of the swatch book? Yeah. So this, again, linking back to the 100 days, I'd kind of use that as an opportunity to learn some different bookbinding stitches, some different variations on the Japanese stab bind, which is what you're seeing here. And I was thinking, right, they're all slightly different, but I still want, how can I bring them all together as an edition? Can I bring them all together as an edition? Are they not? Is it a unique book? And so I made up these hard covers, and I use letterpress to print the title swatch book on the back. So there's an edition of about 18 or 20 of them. I haven't got them all made up, so I'm not 100% sure. And all the covers are the same, but inside the content will always be different. So, yeah, and it's been really popular, actually. That was exhibited in the same exhibition as the museum, and they were really popular. A couple of collections have got them, and yeah, I think it just honours the beautiful scraps of paper that have gone into them. There's the cover. And so I mentioned earlier that I had been getting interested in tapestry and in quilting and embroidery. That was what I grew up doing, those sorts of things. And then I think that's why I love bookbinding so much, is because it was where the textiles and the stitching and the drawing kind of came together for me. And so I came across something called, well, I read a quote that in France you can get paid to mend your clothes, and it's like a token system. And so you can take your token, take your shoes to the cobbler, you can take your clothes to the dressmaker, and then you can get, the government will pay for you to mend your clothes. And so I really liked this idea, and was reading about repair and stitch and visible mending and lots of things that are quite in fashion at the moment. And so I read about a housif, which is it's all right, you can move down. So a housif is a travel sewing kit. It's like a pocket sewing kit. And today you would see them probably on a film set or a theatre set. Somebody would have it as like a little repair kit. But they have a history of being used by soldiers, taken by soldiers. And then they were something that family members and sewing groups would make up for and send out for soldiers that are away fighting at war. And when you see them, they're very much like a book. They're a fabric book with all these things and these pockets sewn into them. So back to the rubber stamping. And if you scroll down, you'll see the book that came out of this. I was trying to slow down at this point. I make a lot of quick work, and I was trying to slow down and make it more research focused, explore different papers. So this is a little bit, it's a bigger work, and I screen printed all the paper first using paper stencils. So the far left page, the two long dresses and the pink kind of square, you can see that's all done screen printed using paper cut stencils. And then I used, in a similar way to the swatch book, I used the rubber stamps then to standardize the books and to make it into an edition. So there's 12 of those. And I hand dyed the paper really badly, but that makes it look like kind of like fabric. So that sort of worked. But yeah, that was a learning curve as well. So that's Husif, which means housewife. And you can see on the right there the little needle book. I did a talk a couple of weeks ago at the Artist Book Fair about how my grandma's sewing box has influenced some of these projects, because it was just kind of sat in the corner. So this is another exhibition. You can see the Husif on the left there, and then you can see the blue, you can see just the bottom section. The lesson of this was that I made a really big piece of work for a really small gallery, and photographing it is really hard when that happens. But it's a Japanese paper, and I was thinking about quilting. I'd been reading about boro, which is Japanese quilting, and that's where the indigo colour comes from, that heritage. And I'd been looking at, remember all those maps from earlier on? I've been doing a lot of reading up and looking into garden maps and thinking about community gardens and sustainability and growing things together. And so that's where this book, that's where I wanted to make a bigger piece of work and stretch myself, literally, because it was huge, and try some new stuff. And so that's where that came from. where do we go next? So then another bigger piece of work that I did was side by side. And this is a box set of, um, so it's a concertina book on the left with a hardcover, but then the little packets that you can see are 3 seed packets, and the side by side folds out into a garden map. And in the seed packets, the clothes bank has a spool of thread, and the food bank has a chili seed, and then the seed bank is the other one that you can't see in the picture, has a flower seed as well. So I was looking at how you can make a set of things. And then you can see some close-ups of the wall hanging here. As I was printing it, you can see the screen bed there, you can see the vacuum. So this is museum winning its award. So I tried to put in a picture where you could kind of see the grandeur of the gallery there. I was trying to think about how, so exhibitions are quite a recent direction from my work, and that's been, I'm quite familiar with fairs. I'd been retailing through some shops as well, but just trying to take my time, make those bigger pieces of work. So this slide here is learning teaching. I think is a really important part of my practice. It makes me think quite differently about the work that I make when I work with students. I spend a lot of my time working with students as well. And it seemed this event happened last week at our college, so it seemed good that I needed to show you some pictures of our students. So that is the sculpture court at Edinburgh College of Art, and I realised a few years ago that we had this amazing venue and all our students were paying to be part of professional fairs without really having an opportunity to get much experience of selling their work, pricing their work, packaging their work. So that is how Bookmarks was born. So it's an artist book and zine fair. Some years we have talks and workshops. Every year we have an educators meet-up symposium. And the quote sums it up. Bookmarks gives students permission to play and experiment, legitimising it by offering an endpoint. The model of a book fair gives students an opportunity to practice alongside graduates and teachers, learning by doing and reflecting on the experience back in the classroom. This experiment has brought surprising results in developing autonomy, creating communities of practice, and challenging the relationship between education and industry. And we get over 1,000 visitors, and it's on for the afternoon, so it's a big event now. So I also do event management, it seems. Not sure about that one. So here are some of the things that I've been reading. I also like going to exhibitions. I like seeing other practitioners' work as well. Claire Hunter's Making Matters is a really interesting one, the second book. I'm kind of halfway through that, and I keep kind of, when you read a book and you keep going, oh, I didn't know this, and did you know this? And so I've been enjoying reading that. And following her journeys around the world. And then this was my desk today. It seemed appropriate to finish with what's on my desk. So at the weekend, I went to undertake a workshop with an artist called Kate Collins over in Glasgow, and she works with folded paper. And my sister laughed when I said that I was going to learn how to fold paper because I work with paper all the time. But I found this really stressful. I found it really hard. It looks really impressive. And I enjoyed doing it. But yeah, I found it was difficult. It is a departure from bookbinding, which surprised me. But watch this space as to where that goes. That is it, I think.
Well, Lucy, thank you so much, everyone.
Oh, I think you're clapping. I can see you clapping.
You are so cool. So thank you so much for doing this. This has been really interesting. And if anyone has any questions for Lucy, we do have a little bit of time. I can pass around a microphone.
Yeah, do you want to stop sharing the slides and then I can see
Sure.
a bit more? If that's an option.
Thank you. Escape, you said? thank you. I did slightly panic. Yes. Turn that on. Okay, if anyone has any questions. Ooh.
Hi, I came in a little late. What was the name of that brush that you said you used early on for laying in some of the black ink work that you did?
Um, so I use a dip pen.
Oh,
Okay. Okay.
So I use a dip pen, and then I'm really, actually really, I've got a variety of nibs. I quite like a mapping nib, which is, let me find one, used for drawing, there we go, for drawing maps, hence why it's called a mapping nib. But then brushes, I'm terrible for just using the same tiny brush for everything, but I've been trying to be a bit more grown up and a bit more professional and just, yeah, use some different shapes of brushes, but I mean, nothing particularly fancy brush wise. Pens, I have stronger opinions on pens.
Hello, could you tell us a little bit about your transition from, I mean, you've had a really successful career. You've made a lot of different connections as well. The maps, the mural work. So how did you kind of get your steps out of school and into industry? We'll call it that way. How were those connections made?
Thank you for telling me I've got a successful career. That, maybe that's an important lesson for today is that you don't always feel like that. And then someone invites you to speak to a college in America, and that's very kind. Um, I it's definitely been step by step, and I think saying yes to things, saying yes, that question, do you do lettering? Yes, I do lettering, but if you'd have asked me, do I paint murals, hand paint murals of family trees into the wall of castles? No. But yes, I do lettering. Yes, I can paint. Yes, I can work out the answers to the other stuff. Um, I think it's as important to find the things that you don't like doing. There have been some things that I have not enjoyed, therefore I've not pursued that line of work. I'm not doing the work that I thought I'd be doing when I graduated. I thought I'd be doing editorial illustration and book covers when I graduated. But I mean, I think it's because I didn't know that the making career existed. Artist books have been a bit of a saviour for me because they allowed me to craft. They allowed me to tell stories, but they allowed me to make as well. Um, I think we're in a really exciting time. We're in a complicated time with the world that we live in and AI and changing design industry, but I think the industry is always changing. When I graduated, I had to print. Sorry, I'm waving my paintbrush out here. When I graduated, I came out with a printed portfolio that cost a bomb and was beautiful for taking around all these design agencies. And then I took it to places because I'm a tactile, physical designer, but actually my website is way more important than that. I send off digital portfolios, having an online presence, so that already the industry was flipping in that way. And I think I say it's a really exciting time because there's all these heritage connections or discovering illustrators and realizing they don't need to work with fine artists or graphic designers. There's this kind of gap in the middle that we fill, that we can provide a service that's slightly different. I get to work with some really interesting people as well. I'm also really blessed that I have my position at the university, which has meant that I didn't need to go chasing commissions for a few years. I was full-time teaching, and I could just say yes to the things that came to me, but I didn't have to pursue them. But also I realized I wasn't very good at doing full-time freelance illustration anyway, because I didn't really enjoy being on my own in the studio. Teaching's a good balance for me, I think. Did that answer the question? There's no
I think it
magic.
did.
there's no magic answer, and everybody does a little bit different. Um, but yeah.
Um, from an archivist, interested in people using archives in new ways, what are some things that archives could do to encourage artists to use their materials, or what materials, you know, fuel your creativity most?
Archivists are brilliant. Archivists are the secret weapon to archives, because archives are this kind of precious kept thing in boxes that you can't just let loose to everybody to kind of, your job is to protect them, but you're the one that knows what's in those boxes. So designers befriend your archivists. Archivists befriend your designers. What can you do? I mean, so I did a really interesting project. I was a project artist for 6 months working with the John Gray Centre, and that was a museum archive, and they had this new building where they brought their museum and their library and their archives together under the same building. So they employed me to make illustrations about their work, to make artwork about their work, to run workshops about what they had in their collections, and that was all aimed at kind of making more visible, making more public what was in your archives. Exhibitions are really good. It sounds like you have a bit of an exhibition space, so that's really good. I'm seeing a lot of like online kind of blog. I think it's really hard to know what's in an archive. So anything that you can do that is a talk about it, or about, I talk about the celebrities of your archive. I go into an archive and say, what are your celebrities? What are the things that you always get out when you're kind of introducing your collection? So the one that I worked with was the criminal register from the 1890s, which had all these descriptions of all these characters who had, like, because there were no mugshots, they described the mustaches and the tattoos and their hair color and things, and you just got these pictures in your head of the characters. I think there's some on my website if you scroll right down to the bottom of the illustration page. So anything like that you can do to bring to life what is in your archive. But I mean, I think it's a good time for archives and collections and libraries. I think it is. I think we are seeing the value of them now. We're in danger of everybody asking a question here because it's a small audience.
Hi there. I was really inspired by your 100 books in 100 days, and I think your art is awesome. I was wondering, how do you combat like burnout, or have you ever experienced sort of like that problem? Because I get it all the time.
Yeah, and you're young. Give yourself permission to play. I think that's what the brilliant thing about the 100 days is that you're giving yourself permission to make something rubbish. I think that is one of the difficult things about Instagram and about how public our practices are now, but giving yourself permission to just play with some paper. Or the idea of the 100 days is you need to set yourself a task that's manageable. So my friend decided she was going to do an animation every day for 100 days. It didn't work. That wasn't practical. But doing an observational drawing every day of anything, it's fine. I was able to do a book every day because I knew that it could be something really simple. I think time of year affects me because I'm on the academic kind of roller coaster. You have these teaching semesters that go like this, and then you have the quieter summer, but then I have kids, and then they require attention at that point. So knowing your seasons, having your seasons, knowing your seasons. I was talking about this actually at the weekend, of having a hobby, how you have a hobby when what you love doing is creative stuff, and that is your job as well. A lot of the things that I choose to do in my free time are to go to exhibitions and to make things. So I've started doing embroidery recently that I just so that I'm not on my phone every night. I'm doing some mindful stitching. But then I'm already going, ooh, if I stitched into paper, what would happen? And I am actually looking at some stitched paper behind the computer here. So yeah.
Awesome. Well, I just saw the time, so I want to give Lucy another round of applause. Thank you so much, Lucy.
Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah, and thank you everyone for being here. We will share the recording of Lucy's talk after. And if you do have a chance to take a look at her artwork in the library, please do stop by. Lucy, thank you.
Thank you very much.